Hey everybody, it's Spear here, and we're closing out on the last color for set 13, Supreme Rivalry. And today we're covering Supreme Kai of Time, and specifically an overrealm oriented strategy that looks to stick your overrealms on board. So kind of like the Toki Toki effect, but on the leader, which is super cool. Of course, guys, before we jump into it, if you want to pick up any of the cards that I talk about in today's Archetype 101, I have to point you guys over to 3-Man Inc., the best place in Canada to get your DBS sealed and single products guaranteed. And if you want to watch me pilot any decks like these, we always have a bunch of fun. Over on Twitch, I stream every Monday through Thursday and Wednesdays on tournaments. Links to everything will be in the description down below. With that said, let's just jump right into the archetype. So as I was alluding to, this is an overrealm turbo strategy. You're really trying to overrealm every single turn. And not only that, but you're trying to get them to stick on board after their overrealm, which is kind of super sweet. You know, a lot of the overrealms have some really busted effects. So keeping them around turn after turn after turn is very strong. And it's recursion focused, like many overrealm strategies these days. If you try and turbo out a bunch of overrealm, there'd be some way to feed cards back into your drop or to be able to push even more overrealms, so you could do it turn after turn after turn. Of course, this all starts off with the leader. Kicking us off, we have Supreme Kai of Time, 10k auto, burst 3. When this card attacks, draw 1 card. So the burst feeding into your overrealm, you get the draw, very sweet. And very basic front side. I'm not gonna lie, it does not take much. But the Awakened condition has, when your last at 4 or less, or you have 8 or more cards in your warp, so very easy to do with some overrealm strategies. You may draw 2 cards, add a card from your life to your hand until you have 6 life, and flip this card over. So we love early awakenings. Being at 6 is pretty cool. Alternate awakened conditions we will always take. Then on the Awakened side, we have Supreme Kai of Time, the Chrono Keeper. Auto, once per turn, when you play a battle card using overrealm, draw 1 card, then place up to 3 black battle cards from your warp to your drop area. So this is where the recursion comes in. You're going to at least be able to do another overrealm using 3 the next turn if no other card goes in your drop, and that's how you now get your card draw. So you really want to be overrealm focused, because you're not going to get by attacking. It really is only by doing overrealm turn after turn after turn. Then she has to activate main once per turn for a black, and you have to choose 1 card in your hand and discard it. If you don't have a Unison card in play, play a black Unison with no specified cost and 9k power from your drop area or warp with a marker on it. And finally, activate main once per turn. Place 1 card from your life to your drop area. Place up to 2 black battle cards from your warp in your drop area. Battle cards you play using overrealm aren't sent to your warp at the end of your turn. And this is where the really powerful things get to go. You know, we have so many strong overrealm abilities that put taxation effects on your opponent, or just have really push skills, because the balance factor for overrealm cards at the end of the turn, they go away. So you can have like 1 cost or no cost dual attackers, double strikers, triple strikers, all these really powerful cards now get to stick around on board, which is very powerful. So of course we can't be an overrealm strategy without overrealms, and of course there's a bevy of support from previous sets. You could look at so many overrealms, but focusing on just the ones that have come out for this set, we have Sun Goten thwarting the Dark Empire, 2 cost 10k overrealm for 2 and critical, so free overrealm. It's always sweet. Auto, if your lead card is Black Supreme Kai of Time, when this card is played using overrealm, send up to 2 cards from the top of your deck to your warp, then draw 1 card. So a lot of cards you're going to see will send directly to warp, because the strategy and the archetype actually benefits from cards in your warp, not only cards in your drop. So some cards will feed into drop to be able to allow you to overrealm more and more. Some of them will feed directly to warp to allow you to be able to use those other skills, which we're going to see it later on. And the card also draws you 1, so it replaces itself. You'll love to see it. Then we have Sun Goten Fusion Renewed, 2 cost 10k overrealm for 2, again for free. Activate main if your leader card is a Black Supreme Kai of Time card and you discard this card from your hand. Look at top 7 cards from the top of your deck, add up to 1 black battle card when it's cost of 2 or less, and overrealm skill, or up to 1 Unison card with 9k power and no specified cost among them, add them to your hand, then shuffle your deck. You can activate main kills of copies of this card before the turn. So just basically an overrealm searcher, and a lot of cards here you're going to see are just going to be overrealms, because the deck really wants to be able to overrealm very cheaply. So a lot of them are cheap overrealms, overrealm for 2, yada yada, for free, just so you can do it turn after turn after turn, and this one will be able to search up for anything else you need in the deck in the 2 cost range. We have Trunks thwarting the Dark Empire, 2 cost 10k overrealm for 2, this one being the double striker. Oftentimes if you have a critical that usually has a counterpart, Goku Vegeta, Trunks Goten, well, this one is the double striker with an auto. If your lead card is a Black Supreme Kai of Time card, when this card is played using overrealm, up to 2 cards from the top of your deck to your warp and draw 1 card. So again, it replaces itself and will be filling up your warp. And onto the bigger bodies, we have SS4 Son Goku thwarting the Dark Empire 6, drop 30k, blocker for Overwhelm 6 and 1 black. So here we do have a cost, but it's just 1 for a 30k blocker. And again, this can stick around. Your 30ks can if you're on the Awakened side. Very powerful thing to consider. Auto when this card attacks, draw 1 card, and at the end of your turn, switch this card to active mode. So not only is it a big beefy 30k attacker, it's a 30k blocker. 30k blockers, outside of like dying from skills, will pretty much stick on board the entirety of the time. On the other end of the spectrum, we have SS4 Vegeta thwarting the Dark Empire 6 cost 30k, critical, and overwhelm for 1 auto. When this card attacks, choose any number of your opponent's battle cards that add up to a total of energy cost of 4 or less and add them to their owner's warp. So now you have kind of like a mini board wipe attached on a body. 30k critical. Again, if it sticks on board, 30k is a number that is so incredibly hard to get rid of for so many decks that it's probably just going to stick on board, and it's going to be a very annoying threat for your opponent to have to deal with. Moving on over to the evolve, we do have a small evolve chain that can utilize overwhelm, but is very much its own thing. Gotenks Fusion Renewed, 3 cost 15k. It is a blocker, counterattack, send 3 cards from your drop area to your warp, negate the attack, and play this card. Then as a permanent, if you have a battle card with energy cost of 6 in play, and it's your opponent's turn, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 1, making it a 2 cost 15k blocker, which is super sweet. That being, one of the SS4s that we had just previously seen. And finally, an auto, when this card attacks, place up to 3 black battle cards from your warp in your drop area. Then choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost of 3 or less and set it to its own drop. Removal, it's a blocker if we need it to be, it's an attacker, and if it attacks, you're going to get some advantage from it. And now we're getting some warp to drop feeding. So like you see, a lot of it's just a big system of sending cards from drop, warp, yada yada yada. Now, Gotenks doesn't stop there, because he can then go into SS Gotenks, a Surging Strike, 6 cost 25k unique dual attacker, overwhelms for 6 and 2 specified black, or can Xeno evolve for 1 specified black on top of a Gotenks 3 cost. This one right here. Then as an auto, when this card is removed from your battle area by an opponent's skill, play up to 1 black Son Goten Xeno card and up to 1 black Trunks Xeno card with energy cost of 3 or less, and overwhelm skill from your drop area or warp. So if he dies, you're going to get some stuff on board, which can allow you to technically go into another one if you wanted to. It's very, very sweet. Which then will accrue their value. They can draw cards, do a bunch of jobs like that. They can feed cards from your drop to your warp. So it's a very much a self-serving loop on that front. He also has an activated battle for 1 specified black. This card gets 10k and double strike for the battle. So it is the battle. So to get him on both dual attacks, you're gonna need 2 specified black, but that's a 35k dual attack and double striker technically, as long as you have the energy to pop it off, which can make it a very, very efficient attacker. Then we have the defensive cards. Son Goten Time Patrol's Charity, 2 cost 50k super combo. Auto, if your lead card is a black card and there are 5 or more cards in your warp, then this card is used in a combo, draw 1 card. So it's just a clean 10k combo that works really well with this archetype. It's kind of like the sparking ones where it just has 10k clean and then it allows you to draw a card. This one working with the Supreme Kai of Time. And then we have Trunks Fusion Renewed, 2 cost 10k blocker. Counterplay, send 2 cards from your drop area to your warp, play this card. And then permanent, if you have battle cards with the overwhelm skill in play, you can activate this card's counter skill from your hand without paying its energy cost. So if you combo it with your leader and then you actually have an overwhelm card on board, it makes it a free counterplay, which is super, super sweet. And then auto for 1, when this card is played, it gains revenge for the turn. So there you just get an additional blocker that can be annoying to deal with, and it'll take down one of your opponent's card or just prevent him from wanting to attack altogether just because this now has revenge. And that effectively only costed you 1 energy, assuming you have an overwhelm on board. Then we have Supreme Kai of Time Labyrinth Unleashed, 3-drop 5k SR, counterattack, negate the attack, and play this card. Permanent, if you or your opponent have 3 or more cards in their warp, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 2, so a 1 cost negate. Not bad, but what else does she do to warrant her being an SR? Well, she has an auto that if your leader card is black, when this card is played using its counterattack skill, choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards and send it to its owner's warp. At the end of the turn, play the card sent to warp by the skill to the owner's battle area with their skills negated for the turn. So effectively, she's a 1 cost, kind of like a Kakunsa, right? The Kakunsa negate that can choose any battle card and destroy it. Well, the battle card is going to come back, but it's going to come back later on, and it's basically delaying your opponent being able to use a card. And aside from cards with barrier, you can pick pretty much anything, making a very strong, versatile, and annoying negate, especially depending on the archetype your opponent is playing. This could delay Evo chains, it can delay all kinds of different things, which makes her, really solid. And then to bring together defensive cards, we have Clash of the Masked Warriors. 1 cost extra card, activate battle. Choose one of your opponent's Unison cards. Your opponent may remove a marker from that card. If they don't, your leader doesn't take damage from attacks using their Unison card's strike skills for the battle. So, the timing's a bit weird on here, but basically, if your opponent used the ultimate, then you're saving, because a lot of ultimates on Unisons give them double strike, triple strike, so on and so forth. This basically giving you a way that for 1 energy, you can basically say, okay, well, you ultimated, odds are your Unison has 1 marker left. Well, you're welcome to kill your Unison, or I'll only take 1 damage from this, give or take. So now we're actually getting more and more ways to deal with Unisons, this one being in black, which is very interesting. Now, of course, these days we can't talk about archetypes without talking about their promos, and this one has its own specific slide just because it very much is, like Black has been doing recently, getting a lot of promos for their archetypes. So there's a bit of splashability here, which we'll talk about in a second, but very usable by the Supreme Kai. So here we have Time Patrol Sun Goten, 2 cost 10k auto. Once per turn, when you play a battle card using Overwhelm, draw 1 card, then place up to 3 battle cards from your warp to your drop area. So this is probably one of the most mandatory TPs for this deck. You're going to Overwhelm all the time. Here, just giving you additional draws and refeeding your drop. So it's just one of those cards that you're probably going to want to make sure you have for this archetype very specifically. Additionally, as an activate main, choose this card and one of your Trunks Xeno cards and send them to their owner's warp. Choose 1 Gotenk Xeno card with an energy cost of 3 from your hand or warp and play it. If you play that card from your hand, draw 1 card. So if you play it from your hand, it's going to replace itself, give it a cantrip. And now we have a cheap way to go into the 3-drop. And this is where it combos really well with the 6-drop, where if it dies, you get these back and then these do their thing. And then you can go back into the 3-drop, creating a really annoying chain that pretty much guarantees that Gotenks is going to stay on board pretty much the rest of the game once he hits it. Then we have SS4 Vegeta Feigned Greetings, 6 cost 30k Overwhelm for 6 auto. When this card is played using Overwhelm, your opponent chooses 1 card in their hand and sends it to their warp. So just an annoying card, not the most powerful, but it is something that can put a decent amount of pressure. It's a 30k, which gives it relevance in a bunch of different archetypes, but it's one that you can use if you just want to be able to aggress your opponent with another 30k that also gets rid of a card in their hand. And to wrap around the promos, we have SS3 Gogeta Thwarting the Dark Empire, 6 cost 25k unique double striker Overwhelm for 6 and 1 specified black. Otherwise, you can Union Fusion for 1 specified black with a Son Goku Xeno and Vegeta Xeno, which there's a few in this archetype. Permanent, you can choose battle cards in your warp when choosing cards to use with this card's Union skill from your hand. If you do, place the chosen cards from your warp in your drop area. Then auto, when this card attacks, choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards and send it to its owner's warp. So just consistent, board clearing. It's a 25k double striker for a very efficient cost. You can Overwhelm it if you don't want to Union Fusion it. It gives you another aggressive option to be able to play with the deck. Moving on to the Unison, we have Demigod Momentary Ally, no specified cost, 9k. Of course, this one being the one that you can free play with your leader if you want to. Auto, once per turn, burst 3 if your leader card is a Black Saiyan only or God only card, so it can work with other archetypes. When you play a battle card using Overwhelm, this card gains Wormhole for the turn, which is really good in being able to chain multiple Overwhelms now. And that's, it's so good in being able to effectively allow you to extend your plays. Then there is the plus abilities. Activate main, play up to 2 black battle cards from your warp in your drop area for +1. Again, just more extension. -3, activate main, add up to 2 battle cards with an energy cost of 7 or less and Overwhelm skill from your warp to your hand. Meaning that you're just going to be able to, well, I liked using that one. I'm going to get it back and reuse it. And it allows you for 2, which, comboed with the wormhole and all that jazz really means that you can push your plays. Then there's the finisher of the archetype. We have SS3 Bardock, breaking free from the mask, 7 cost 30k double striker. Auto, once per turn, add up to 1 card from your life to your hand. When your opponent activates a counter attack skill on an extra card, negate that skill. This skill can be activated at counter timing. So basically being a counter on a body, which is very obnoxious, very annoying. And then activate main for 4 specified black. If you have 15 or more black cards in your warp, play this card from your hand, so you don't have to pay it for 7, which is nice. And finally, one last activate main. Once per turn, if your life is at 1, switch this card to active mode. So your opponent uses negate, you get to negate the attack, uses double strike, and now he basically becomes a dual attacker if that was where your last 2 life. Really giving you a great beater to close out the game. And to wrap it all up, of course, this is one of the few archetypes that have a secret rare that works really well with them. In previous one-on-ones for the set, we haven't talked about the secret rares because they weren't very archetype specific. They're pretty generic with what they do. But here we have Rebellu, which works extremely well with Supreme Kai of Time. Demigod's Secretary, 40k ultimate double strike, Dark Overwhelm for 8 for 2. And then a permanent, if this card would be removed from a battle area, remove it from the game instead. We've been seeing this with secret rares for a while now. Then auto, if you have 4 or more energy, when this card is played using Dark Overwhelm, play up to 2 black battle cards with different card names, energy cost of 6 or less, and the Overwhelm skill from your warp. This is incredibly powerful. I mean, for what it's worth, it does go 6 or less, and a lot of the insanely powerful Overwhelms are 7 or more. But that doesn't matter. 6 costs or less Overwhelms still provide a ton of value, can still provide a ton of aggression, are really strong in general. Especially when she has the additional auto, choose 1 card in your battle area with the Overwhelm skill and place it in its owner's drop area. When one of your opponent's cards attacks, negate the attack. So basically, by herself, she basically provides you 3 free negates, on top of just being able to pump out 2 insanely greatly statted bodies because of just the way that Overwhelm efficiently stats its bodies, and you're just a lot of pressure, a lot of value on board right away, making her an extremely strong card, especially since because they weren't played with Overwhelm, they just get to stick on board, which is a ton of value. And that pretty much wraps up the Supreme Kai of Overwhelm archetype. You know, a very fun archetype that I think has a lot of longevity. You know, Overwhelm is something that we've been seeing support for time and time again, in every single set pretty much has Overwhelm at this point, which means Supreme Kai of Time is something to keep in front, because if there's ever any more Overwhelms that have great skills or permanence or things that can make your opponent's life hell and you want to stick on board, Supreme Kai of Time by herself as the leader allows you to be able to get additional value off of that, on top of just having a bunch of great support that allows her to Overwhelm time and time again. With that said, guys, I'd really like to know how you guys would throw it together. Do you guys throw all the Overwhelms in your deck, or do you add in some tech? I'd really want to know how you build the deck down in the comments below. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Hey, if you dislike it, thumbs down works too. If you watch more of my videos, of course, we're covering the last of the Archetype 101s and doing more discussion and gameplay and all that jazz. Subscribe button's in the corner. With that said, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Ciao.